All right, everybody ready? Here we go. 3.
But we don't need to.
No, I'm not counting. I was not counting down for a sync point. I was just as a. Oh my god.
I already did that.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the first episode of Tempest Talks for our season 2/season 3 break. Today we're right in the middle of, as we record this, we're right in the middle of the airing of season 3 of Picard. I think we're like exactly at the midway point of episodes. So we thought we would talk about our thoughts on this latest season of Picard so far. So I know Travis has been dying to have this conversation. So why don't we give it to Travis first and he can lead us off.
Oh, I just wanted to talk about it because, man, the season is crazy.
Okay, great. So what else? What everybody else think?
Thanks for joining us, everyone. But really, so I am liking it. I'm enjoying the season quite a bit. What is everybody else's general thoughts thus far?
Why don't we go around? Let's go around the horn.
Sure.
So let's let Tara go ahead and you say your piece first, because
Sure.
I know
because ladies first. I've been enjoying it as well, and I mean, frankly, this is what I always thought Picard was going to be. I thought it was going to be the relationships with people from Next Gen and a where are they now kind of thing, and I thought they would work together in some way and fall into each other's lives again, because that's what happens with the best of friends, right? Over time, you just keep falling into each other's lives. And so like this season is what I thought this show would have been. And the first 2 seasons I can pretend didn't happen.
In fairness, so are they. So
I mean,
Yeah.
that's also true.
Yeah.
They have not mentioned, I don't think, anything really.
Yeah, right. That's a good point.
So
Yeah.
other
Maybe
than
somebody
small,
got in
very
there and
small
shook it up.
things,
Yeah.
feel
They
bad
sort of
for,
obliquely reference the fact that he's an android now, but not
Mhm.
much given
Yeah.
the magnitude of that reality.
Right.
Yeah, and they mention Raffi and Seven having a relationship, and that's it.
That's about
So
it.
do you think that those choices were because of the fan reaction and feedback to the first couple seasons?
I wonder.
Because they
Probably.
must have been doing production on season 3 almost simultaneously with season 2, because it was ready really quickly. And
No,
so
they
were
did.
the
They
trailers
actually
for it.
they shot seasons 2 and 3 concurrently. Not
Did they
concurrently,
actually?
but consecutively. Yeah, like
Back to the Future.
yeah, essentially. They did the same way. They filmed seasons 2 and 3 as one big chunk, the same way they did Back to the Future 2 and 3 or the Lord of the Rings movies.
But that doesn't make sense to me from a narrative
feels
standpoint,
so
because the two are
different.
so disconnected.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. I wonder if their vision of Star Trek Picard from the beginning was each season is an episode,
It's a 10-hour. Every season is like a 10-hour movie.
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
where it's self-contained and it's not necessarily telling a fully deliberately contiguous story.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, it's very much Discovery in that sense of format, right? Like Discovery is the same thing in that essentially the season is the self-contained story as opposed to the episode, or on the other end, like Breaking Bad, where all 5 or 6 seasons or whatever it is one self-contained story.
Yeah. I don't know.
all right. So general thoughts. We're still going around the horn.
Oh yeah, keep going.
Yeah. So Matt, how about you?
No, I like it a lot. There are definitely things that I haven't been a giant fan of, but it's really good. Much better, I think, than the first 2 seasons. It's much more Star Trek so far, rather than whatever the first 2 seasons were kind of trying to be. And I actually like that they are not referencing the other seasons much either. As in, like we just said, it's each season is one giant long movie, and I think that's a cool way to do this. If that was their idea from the beginning.
It definitely does feel more like Star Trek 11 more than TNG season 8, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that.
definitely
That's
does.
yeah, I agree with that. So I think that I think so. My initial reactions were very, very guarded to the first couple episodes, and because of what happens with Star Trek Picard seasons 1 and 2, where the first 2 episodes, especially of season 1 of Picard, had me so hopeful and so on board, and then it just, for my money, fell off the rails. So I was very guarded for the beginning of this season.
Yeah.
And finally, after the first two episodes, I was like, ooh, I think I like where this is going. And then I think episode 3, maybe it was because I finally allowed myself to have higher expectations than previously. But see, episode 3, 17 seconds was the one.
Yeah.
It didn't land for me at all.
Yeah.
It was like, that's the one where Picard and Riker get into their little tiff on the bridge for like the last act of the episode. And it just felt so forced. Like, and they had like, they set up their relationship, or they at least covered some ground in the relationship, talking about the birth of, Riker and Troy's son. When that was awesome. I loved that scene. The de-aging was a little meh, but that scene itself I loved it. And then like Marina Sirtis's little cameo in that moment was what I thought was really lovely. And then she says, bring the whiskey. And it was just a nice scene. And so they already established all this goodwill that they didn't even need to, because it's Riker and Picard. We already know the goodwill that exists between them. But like by the end of the episode, the way that they're just turning on each other is just, it felt. So again, I thought, oh God, here we go. It's going off the rails again. And so again, my shields went up, but
I get it.
episodes 4 and 5, I thought were good. Like I actively enjoyed this, where they're going. I have nitpicky stuff, but I will never not have nitpicky stuff, because it's who we are as fans, as people, and as the junkies that we are. We're always going to have minor issues, but largely, in short, too late. I like it. I'm on board. I hope it doesn't. I'm still worried that it's going to go off the rails at any time, because based on the trailers alone, we know there's still a crap load of stuff that hasn't happened yet.
My question is,
Yeah.
when you say go off the rails, do you mean go off the rails bad or go off the rails bonkers? Because those are two separate things.
Oh, bad.
Happen.
Because
Okay.
both season 1 and season 2 went off the rails bad in my mind.
Yeah, off the rails bonkers, I'm on board for.
If they can pull it off, and so far they're
Yeah.
doing an okay job, but go ahead, Brian.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think we're on the same wavelength in a lot of ways. I'm still pretty guarded, although I will say I'm also enjoying the season more than the first 2. But I am reserving judgment until basically we see how it lands, because there are just a lot of elements and so much stuff that we haven't even seen. Like, do you realize we haven't seen Moriarty yet? Like,
I forgot that was in the trailer.
and Lore or B4 or whoever that is,
exactly.
and Geordi and the Enterprise.
Yeah,
And-
like we know that
Yeah.
at some point there will be a moment where they're all in the same room together at one point, and that still hasn't happened yet, right? So,
Yeah.
there's again, cautiously optimistic, still reserving judgment. I will say, however, that this last episode, for the first time in a long time, I had the sense of, I hate what they did, but in the right way,
Mhm.
which
Interesting.
by which I mean, like, so first of all, spoilers, obviously. So if you haven't seen up to, what was this last episode called?
5.
Impossible.
Oh, 5 is
Imposters.
imposters.
If you haven't seen up to episode 5, Imposters, spoilers. But
Okay, I'm gonna take off.
all right, bringing Ro back was amazing. Her scenes between Picard and her were amazing, and then her sacrificing herself, the character dying, was like, I hate that, but in the way you're supposed to hate something. I was like,
Mhm.
that
I
was
know.
amazing. Yeah, that
Yeah.
was amazing. That was awesome, and I want her to be around more. But that breaks my heart that she isn't. But in the way that
See,
your heart is
I
supposed to be broken.
I have a very particular reaction to that we can circle back to later. I didn't want to cut you off, but like, remind me to comment on that.
Sure. I mean, yeah. So I definitely liked this last episode a lot. I hope the momentum it was building on continues. I agree with the whole Riker and Picard tiff in the earlier episode. I honestly thought that Riker was a changeling.
That I
And
thought
Oh,
Riker
interesting.
was?
yeah, 'cause
yeah.
Riker wouldn't
Oh.
do that.
We thought
Yeah.
Ro was. Oh, yeah, for Riker to talk to him that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
But also
is
for Picard, but Picard was
interesting.
talking about. So there is a justification in my mind as I let it sit as to why they were so bad in those roles. It's because they were completely reversed from what their standard relationship is.
Yeah.
Like, yes, Riker has been and is an established captain, so it's not like he's unused to being in the captain's chair, but he's certainly not used to having Picard be the one who's supposed to give him suggestions and but have the final decision lay at his feet. And Picard is certainly not used to not being in the chair. But I thought it was Picard who was way out of character in those moments, where it's, you have to stay and fight. We have to fight. We'll fight. Like, well, it's just like, what are you doing? like why? What is your motivation for turning around and fighting? There was no clearly obvious reason from the audience perspective why fighting would be the correct answer when they already laid out how badass the ship was going to be. A, because it's really pointy, and any really pointy ship is badass. B, like they literally listed all of the the fanciful and the weaponry, and it's like, I was totally on Riker's side. Like, we're not going to win this fight. What are you talking about, Jean-Luc?
Yeah, I thought Riker's reaction was pretty normal. I thought Picard was the one that was out of line in that whole thing, and Riker got super heated about it, but also like Picard used his dead son to try and manipulate him into doing what he wanted. Like, pretty harsh.
Yeah, you're right. On the surface, like, that sounds like a justifiable reaction, but I just don't think it played well. It just didn't land for me. Like, they didn't, getting from A to Z in the way that they did just didn't feel like the right course that Picard and Riker would have gotten there. They could have gotten there in a much more graceful and
totally
character satisfying moment. Yeah,
that wasn't me saying the scene worked completely. I was just noting that, like, I felt like Riker's side was more defined, at least to make sense.
Yeah, I completely agree with you.
So let's circle back to the Ro thing that you wanted to talk about.
So first of all, Tara can attest, when Michelle Forbes was walking down the corridor, I was leaning back in the reclining chair, and then it was like, "Putong!" I sat up and I go, "Is that Ro?" Like, I was totally on board, and then I was totally not on board because I was totally convinced that this was just a fan grab moment for the producers, and Ro was a changeling for no reason whatsoever. But then she wasn't a changeling, and that was awesome. But like, I totally get where you're coming from about appreciating her sacrifice, but A, we need more Ro. Like, she should just. I was really excited. But also, so here's a beloved character who has been sort of in the mythos of Star Trek forever, and there's always been a gap in her story arc after the events where she left to join the Maquis. Like, we don't know anything more about her on screen. And then, so she's an important character in the history of Star Trek. She's also a female character in the history of Star Trek, and the female character had to die in order to create a motivation for Shaw to do his thing.
Yeah, there was definitely some fridging going on there.
Yeah.
So,
what is fridging? I actually don't know that.
Fridging is deliberately killing one of the female characters to make a male character figure out the situation's important.
Oh, there's a term for it. Well, that's exactly how I felt. It was like, I really would have liked to see Ro live, and I'm still holding out hope that maybe she is still alive. So
no, she's dead.
He's totally dead. I agree on all those points, but in that sense of, like, I so deeply viscerally want Ro to still be around, which makes it great that they took her away, right, from a dramatic standpoint. But again, I still really want her to be around. And it's actually quite like I think Picard and Seven's relationship that we get in season 1, but also subsequent to that, in the sense of, like, I really want to see I want to see the relationship between Picard and Seven develop, like when they first meet in their early, days of knowing each other, like all of that, this kind of new sense of lost era between the TNG era and now the Picard era, like that just, it feels like such fertile grounds of to see stuff.
But they're not going to de-age Patrick Stewart for an entire television show.
No, of course. Like, the actual practical realities of it make it so it's not going to happen. But it's just from a storytelling standpoint, like I want to know more about Ro's life between
Where
Preemptive
were
Strike
you? What
and this
happened?
episode, and the same for Picard and Seven's relationship, and so on.
Absolutely. So Travis, what was your reaction to Commander Ro?
Oh, I loved it. I loved Ro being there. I feel like dramatically her dying was a bummer and had the same sort of like, God, I wish we had more Ro, and all that stuff. I think her appearance fits a lot of my big complaint of the season so far, that it just feels like some stuff is happening super slow and some stuff is happening super fast, and so like it doesn't seem to be meshing super well for me.
What is going super slow for you?
I think the season on the whole is going super slow. We mentioned earlier about how there's so much left to tell and we're halfway through the season. Like doesn't it feel like we just finished the first act of a movie? Like we just uncovered the plot and now the team is on board. Like this feels like the end of the first act, but we are fully halfway through the season.
Yeah,
you're right.
The first 5 episodes were them finding Beverly and Jack, and then escaping from Chang
the Nebula.
Jr.
Yeah.
I
feel like
Chang.
I feel like the first
DJ.
5 episodes could be shorter overall. Also, this is my own writer brain activating, but the idea of I kind of wish that they had just done only focusing on the Picard storyline for the first like full 4 episodes to get us to the end of episode 5 by itself. And then when Picard calls up the agents on the ground, that's the first time we see Worf. And then the next episode is literally just a flashback episode that shows everything that happened with Rafi and Worf, as opposed to constantly cutting back for a 10-minute
back
scene.
and forth and back and forth.
Yeah, it's like I feel like the Picard storyline with Will would be much more streamlined, could be like, be its own thing. And then it's like, who were Ro's agents on the ground? It's Worf. And then we get to go back and find out what Worf was doing. And like I think if you cut out all of the stuff of Raffi Worf and put it in one long order, it's probably about the length of an episode at this point.
That's interesting.
Yeah, but that's a full episode with Rafi and Worf, and I don't think I could handle that.
Why? I like them together.
I think they're a great couple.
I do too. I love that. I love their chemistry and their like him being the one who has been meditating and has to counteract her impulsivity, and
that is great. That's a really cool.
I just wish they dialed Raffi back a couple notches.
Me too. Yeah, maybe that's what it is. And the only reason I say that I couldn't handle it is because I always find myself, and I don't know why, but I always find myself wanting to get through whatever scene instead of being lost in the scene with Rafi and Worf.
That's sad.
I want to get through this. Well, I guess it's the character of Raffi has never really spoken to me the way that I wish that she did. Like we've played the Raffi card so much in seasons 1 and 2 that I feel like we're just we're retelling her story over again. But now that's not entirely true that's not really fair for season 3, because she, being undercover, had to make the choice of whether or not to go back on the drugs. That was a character moment that I appreciated. I don't know. I just feel less connected. I think it's probably like the same. I'm probably just, an old fogey, and I want to see my favorite characters. I want to see the TNG cast.
Do you think maybe you're less connected because it's those quick scenes that we don't have time to?
Yeah, maybe.
Like
that's entirely possible. Maybe. Yeah, it might just be that because I'm always interested in what's happening on the Titan, and I want to see what's going on next with that. That I would rather get through the scenes with Worf and Raffi and back to what is most interesting to me. But if it was a self-contained Raffi Worf episode and there's no hint that you're going to be cutting back and forth between the two, yeah, you're probably right, Tara.
Yeah.
That I'd enjoy it more.
Right.
It's also for me, I know, like I think Michelle Hurd is a fantastic actress.
Oh, she's brilliant.
I'm just kind of tired of having to watch her do the same note over and over and over again of the like being
the
really
note,
like that angry, sad angstiness.
Right.
Like the great thing about Star Trek, and I think the thing that we love about the TNG style is that it's so there's that whole like there's no conflict, there's no interpersonal conflict between characters that Roddenberry had, and how kind of not realistic that really is.
Yeah.
But I think like a softer form of that Star Trek kind of landed on after Roddenberry exited is more of the sense of like keeping the characters focused on the external problems of like, we've got this political problem or this weird science problem or whatever, and their attention is on the main characters and solving whatever that external problem, working together to solve whatever that external problem is. Which is not to say they didn't have, drama and, personal conflict and personal trauma and histories and all of that. But there's just something about like Rafi's character in particular that feels like, and again, less so in season 3 than seasons 1 and 2, but I still think it's there somewhere, of, just kind of wallowing in your own trauma as opposed to trying to solve whatever this external challenge is and having to overcome your own trauma or whatever it is in the process. And again, like I think Raffi has more of that because she has this investigation that she's trying. It's just she spent so much time on that kind of one single note in the first 2 seasons that anytime she has these like angsty beats, I'm like,
my thing
I just want you to be happy, Rafi.
Yeah, what can I do for you?
So mine was the way you had mentioned the feeling good about it and then feeling like you're taking a step back. Rafi's storyline particularly was that, because I thought that they gave Rafi as a character the opportunity to sort of make that transition when the ex-husband was like, I'll make one call instead of both, and sort of like was like, oh well, we were both drug users,
right,
and I just love my son, so I just stopped. And it's like, that's not really how addiction works. And like, that was a horrible thing to say to her. And then saying, I will only do one of those 2 things, you have to choose. Again, acknowledgement of the fact that when she was lost in it the previous time because she thought there was some massive conspiracy, she was right that there was a massive conspiracy. And for that guy, I'm sure he's hurting as the ex-husband, like his marriage fell apart, the kid, like all of that anger and stuff, but that was still a horrible thing to do to an addict, to be like, it's your fault because you just couldn't stop. And now you have a choice that I can either let you see your son again, or your grandchild, or I'll help you on this thing, even though you were right the last time you had the same sort of instinct. And
that's a really good point.
I thought when that happened, I was like, good, because Rafi has a chance to like turn the everything makes me sad and angry to being sort of righteous about it, because she had every right to be like, screw you, man. Like, I'm struggling here and I was right, and like, why are you putting this all on me? Like I'm trying to do the thing.
I'm struggling here, but I'm also trying to save the galaxy, asshole.
And I thought that would have been a nice foil for her to then shift into a mode where it's like she still can be hot-headed and passionate and still feel things super hard, and like that can still drive her in the same way it does, but there'd be this sort of like an edge to it that would feel a little different than the way it has felt, and they didn't really kind of go there. And it just kind of felt like the same Rafi we had seen for 2 seasons. So
how do you all feel about
chamomile tea?
Okay, let's go right to chamomile tea, because that delivery was one of the greatest in all Star Trek.
Beheadings are on Wednesdays,
and like when he lists all of his own titles, because nobody else gave him those titles. Those are his titles.
Awesome.
That was just the best. What was it? It was, I am Worf, son of Moog, House of Martok, son of Sergei, House of Roshenko, Slayer or Bane to the Duras, and
Bane to the Duras, Slayer of Galron.
Slayer of Galron. I am making chamomile tea.
And Khaleesi of the Great Grass Sea.
I want to see his night table where he's workshopping all of the different names, and there's like 30 and he's rearranging them so that they sound good.
There's one that says Father of Alexander. Just
no, we're gonna cross that off. Yes. By the way, I'm throwing the prediction right now that there's absolutely going to be an Alexander entrance into the.
Oh, I hope so.
Do you think so?
You think so?
Think?
Yeah, because this is what season.
I mean,
this is what Picard does.
Like, is gonna be in it.
The show Picard just throws everything on the wall and just goes. But yeah, so what I wanted to say was, and this is a perfect segue, because I think Michael Dorn hits every note from the moment he steps on screen, like 100%. he hasn't missed a beat. I think 100%. Gates McFadden hasn't missed a beat. I think she's spectacular in it. I think I think I think Jonathan Frakes does. Honestly, the one who hits the beats, who doesn't hit all the beats to me is Patrick Stewart. If I'm going to be fully honest,
He's an older
He's 137
gentleman.
years old.
I wasn't gonna say that.
so so how do you all feel?
You know that
maybe not every beat, but I mean, like he still lands a bunch of really great stuff.
Yeah, totally.
As well.
I
so,
think. Go ahead, Travis. Sorry, you gone.
No, I think that was it. Just some of the strongest moments in season 3, I feel like, are stuff that he has brought. So
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I think he was given the opportunity rather than in Next Generation you don't see a ton of character growth through it. You see little bits, right? But because it's so episodic, they don't go back and they can't like address like, oh well, this happened to Jean-Luc Picard 8 episodes ago, so it's probably still bothering him. They can't really do that too much in the Next Generation, other than giant things like becoming Locutus, and even that gets forgotten after a couple episodes. But
I think, totally. Like he's put in command of the Enterprise again immediately.
Go wrestle with your brother in the mud, and then you'll be fine.
Yeah, what are we doing today?
I mean, well, there's that scene in the Drumhead where the Admiral Sati basically is, trying to tear him down a peg, right? And so it's like, well, you violated the Prime Directive, blah blah blah, so many times, and then like her capstone thing is like, are you fully recovered from your experience with the Borg? And he goes, fully. And it's like,
no, you're not.
Are you?
Yeah, the moment in the episode is you're supposed to take Picard's side because the Admiral is the bad guy here, and you're supposed to be on Picard's side, but he's absolutely full of shit in that moment. Reality, like there's no way he's over it. There's no way he should be over it.
Right.
And
But what I'm saying, I think Patrick Stewart is finally given the chance to have Picard grow as a character and change as a character because of what
that's fair.
So I think he's taking what happened to Jean-Luc Picard through the series, through the movies, and the first 2 seasons. Like, one, I mean, hey, you have an android body now. That's a pretty damn big thing. 2, oh, you had to go back in time, and then you went forward in time, and all this crazy crap happened to the Borg, and you got to relive your mom and your dad and all that horror crap again.
Right.
And so I think now Patrick Stewart is trying to mix all that into.
That's really interesting. Maybe my problem. Maybe my problem with his performance is that he's too good of an actor, and I want him to just be 1994 Patrick Stewart. That's really interesting. All right, I'll try to open my eyes and allow that perspective to.
I mean, I think it was a similar thing. I think we talked about this with Michelle Yeoh as a Mirror Georgiou. Like, I never really bought her as the Mirror Universe character. I think because she's too good of an actress to pull off the bad acting that a Mirror Universe character.
But
Correct.
So the scene between Picard and Beverly is a great example of when like Patrick Stewart is shining in those moments. And like the beautiful thing about that scene is, me personally, I side with Picard in that argument. Like, I fall on his side of the fence, but also I believe Beverly's self-justification, her rationalization for why she kept Jack. Like, I don't agree with it, but the performance and the writing in that scene were so powerful that I could at least accept that character made those decisions for those reasons, which is something that I think failed giving that sort of credence and power to the characters in previous iterations, where it's just like their motivations seemed like completely unfounded in logic and reality. And I bought it. I bought that entire scene so much. It was just beautiful, with the one exception, the one minor exception. I wish she had not said "my son." it's like, just say Wesley, which is like, I lost this, that, and my son Wesley. Like Picard doesn't know who Wesley is. It's like that
Yeah.
little, it seems
Mhm.
nitpicky, but those two words like kind of took me out of it for just a minute, because it's like, why would Beverly Crusher need to say the words my son to Picard about who Wesley is? I don't know. So that's it.
It's a very much, it's a, as you know, moments like
Yeah.
it's you're saying my son for the benefit of the audience who,
Yeah,
Correct.
you know, as opposed to the actual character in front of you in the scene.
totally.
Right.
One thing I also I agree that I also thought that scene was great, and one thing I loved about it was that you got a sense of the stuff that had happened in the span of time between, right? So like an easy trap to fall into in these kinds of things is like, well, we last saw them in, you know, Nemesis or All Good Things or whatever, and now we're picking the story up 30 years later, and there's not really a sense of what happened in between, and just the specificity that she lays out some of the things that happened that must have happened after Nemesis but before that moment of like,
Yeah.
well, you know, essentially she like rattles off like 4, I think, different assassination attempts on Picard, right? And
Yeah.
but they all have a level of detail to them that feels very real and well done. Of like, well, when these people came after you on this day, and this, you know,
Yeah.
then this other time
Yeah.
when these other people did this,
Yeah.
it
You
was
went
very,
to the Praetor and a photon grenade went off meters away from you. And it's like, that's an episode that we haven't seen. but
exactly,
it's-
yeah.
Yeah.
It's yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Agreed.
We've not talked about the greatest new edition of Star Trek Picard season 3, and that is Captain Shaw.
Oh,
My
Oh,
God,
I
that
thought you were
guy's
about
a
to
gem.
I thought you were about to say
Magnificent.
the Vulcan gangster, which I want to get people's temperature on.
That guy was awesome too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll get to that.
Shaw
Shaw is
is-
fantastic.
terrific. Yeah.
Todd Stashwick
he's-
is amazing, and
Yes.
I think Shaw as a character is a blast.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I love, yeah. There's a lot of things I love about him. Well, I mean, so you guys know this, but like one of the things I have fun with in the Tempest is like taking characters or taking the people who are heroes of Star Trek and then like flipping that perspective around, right? So like in season 3, we've got the engineer of the Excelsior project whose entire life was screwed over by Kirk stealing the Enterprise and Scotty sabotaging the Excelsior, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like, so for him, Kirk and Scotty and the rest are like the biggest villains of his entire life. And I feel like Shaw is a very similar sense of like, it's like, you guys are completely like, I'm being a responsible captain. I'm doing
Right.
things the right way.
Yeah.
I'm not just going off on a galactic joyride because I think I know better than the entire rest of Starfleet and the
Right.
Federation.
It was like, you know, when you and your friend go and ask your friend's mom if you can spend the night, and she says no because you have some big family thing, and you want to be mad at the mom, right? Because these like, you and your friend know what's up and what your plans are and what you were gonna do and how you're gonna get there and what you're gonna do at night and how much candy you're gonna have and you're gonna stay up all night. And then she just says no. And it was
I think there's a history here that we have not gotten into.
Oh.
but like,
Tara, let's explore this a little more. So
No.
tell me a little bit more.
I will not, but I will say Shaw saying no to some of our favorite, most beloved characters was like, well,
Mhm.
forget that guy. I hate that guy.
That guy wants to be captain of the USS Banal. Like
He
that's
wants
what
to
he
do
wants.
nothing.
And fun fact, just to touch on yeah, I agree with everybody's take on him. I was a little bit cold on him at first. I mean, the first time we meet him in the dinner scene was
supposed to be.
Yeah, you're
fantastic.
supposed to
Yes,
be.
so I was cold in the right way.
Yeah.
But I also didn't really fully buy some of his motivations in later decisions. But I will say that when he goes into the holodeck and tells the story of Wolf 359,
Yeah.
like that is
So
like
good.
some of
That
the
was
some of the
awesome.
best Star Trek storytelling. And the thing that like it's you can tell that the trauma is there and that he relives it so
Yeah.
frequently, because he says Stardate 4402.3, because that's the Wolf 359 Stardate, and he and maybe everybody knows it because it's like the 9/11 of the Federation, but regardless, it's like he knew the Stardate and just spat it out, which is also the Stardate
being
of the
hammered.
USS Banal's non-mission, by the way. But that,
Oh my
but
God.
that's, but like and one thing that they do, Brian, this is sort of to your point, is they acknowledge, he says, I wrote it down here because I took some notes, the only Borg so deadly that they gave him a goddamn name.
Yeah.
And it was just cool to see that incongruity acknowledged from a non-Borg queen, non-Picard
Yeah.
character, like just a normal person in Starfleet, because they don't know why, like why does this guy get a name? The rest of them are we, and
Right.
that was just a really awesome thing to see.
Well, yeah, I mean, so it's the exact same moment in the pilot of Deep Space Nine, where Cisco and
Mhm.
Picard have that meeting, and I mean, that's like such a great moment that we've raved about before, where Cisco says it's something about seeing you again, and Picard says, "Oh, have we met before?" And Cisco says, "In battle
Yeah,
at Wolf
in
35,"
battle.
because from his perspective, Picard killed his wife,
Mhm.
and that's
Yeah.
that's awful. And we only had that one moment, and that was like great. That was the perfect. That was exactly the way it needed to be for Deep Space Nine. But revisiting that basic idea and like being able to dig into the meat of it a little bit more, of essentially letting Shaw / Cisco, the character with that experience, just be able to get into it a little deeper. Like this is what I went through. This is what you put me through. This is what you did to me and 11,000 other people.
And it totally like justifies his bias against Seven using her Borg designation, and why he feels so passionately about the events of Picard's career and subsequently Riker's. It informs so much about the character in just that one scene. It was just
Question is,
top notch.
How did Seven get assigned to that ship? Like, of all the ships,
yes.
like,
I mean, so that's the weird thing, right? Like we've talked about this before in terms of like in the real life military, or even in an airline, right? You don't pick as the pilot or co-pilot or captain or whatever, the officers that serve with you. The Navy assigns it, or the airline or whatever. In Star Trek, apparently, like Picard picked Riker, and Kirk picked Spock, and that sort of thing. Like, in real life, it would make total sense. Like Starfleet doesn't care. It just says, okay, this is the next person on the duty roster of seniority, and this is the next ship that's up, and that's it. That's the end of the story. Except in Star Trek, we've already had it established where captains can pick their first officers. And why in God's name would a captain like Shaw pick a first officer like Seven?
Also, like the whole, now she's a commander, so like that's a whole separate, like, she's clearly a special case, and so it's just weird that they're like, we're gonna stick her with
she just
the
got
guy
like
who
fast tracked right up to first officer.
Oh, to me,
Which
to me, it was pretty obvious that
Shaw wanted her to be.
No, that Janeway assigned her to a
It's
ship.
jerk.
Or
It's a jerk move by Janeway. You'd think she'd at least like look it up and be like, maybe I shouldn't assign her to a captain who literally was in the Battle of Wolf 359.
Oh, I mean, Janeway was probably
really.
jealous about Seven getting together with Rafi.
Oh boy.
fair.
Did you have something that you wanted to say about it, Matt?
Oh no, just that Brian brought up the Cisco Picard meeting, which was good, but it's a very different situation, right? Because Picard was there as a superior officer of Cisco, so he had to keep everything
In line, in check,
in line. Yeah. Whereas on the holodeck, Shaw is no longer the captain of the Titan at that point. Picard is a retired admiral. They're just two guys in a bar at that point.
Yeah.
So he could say literally whatever the hell he wants to say to Picard.
And they're all assuming that they're about to be dead in the next 10 minutes, right? So like
right. Oh God. So that, and another great thing about this episode, I thought they were going to do the Voyager thing where it's like, we're on power rations. Now you can only get, so many replicator rations a week. Oh, by the way, go create new holodeck characters, but they explain it like, and I'm not necessarily happy with the explanation, but I am happy that they had an explanation.
Yeah.
And then like I can actually buy the explanation that they give, that, it's there for times of distress. And the basically the end times. It's the life deck. It's the place you go when it's about to all be over and you can be in some place happy. And I thought that was actually really cool that they finally explained why the holodeck is powered when the ship
always
be.
Works.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty dark when you think about it, right? So like, if you're definitely going to die, we'll let you die on the beach.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But that's dark, but it's also beautiful.
Bar.
Yeah.
I guess so. I'd rather not die, but that's just me.
Have chosen a bar.
Yeah, I also like all of the other crew members that came and were like, we were going to use this to like visit our homes.
Yeah.
Nope. The Admiral wants to hang out at his favorite dive bar. Okay.
Hey man, there's only so much you can do. It's first come, first serve. Okay.
Oh, this looks like 10-4 is Guinan here. No, we can't afford her this season.
No, we can't afford. We'll be Goldberg this year.
So all of the 12 Monkeys connections. How many here have actually watched 12 Monkeys?
I have not watched 12
a million years ago.
Just the movie.
Well,
it's
you've
there's
seen
a show.
TV show. Yeah, the TV
I've
show.
seen the movie. I have not seen the show.
The show is fantastic, but there's just so many crossovers. Todd
Oh,
Sashford
really?
is in it. Yeah, he's a main character in it. Well, secondary character to begin with, and then sort of becomes a main character in it. And then the guy who plays Sneed is actually the main character of 12 Monkeys, and Sneed's childhood friend, who is his brother, but not
Vulcan
actually his
brother.
Yeah, his Vulcan brother, because they grew up in a rough life together, is actually literally the actor who played James Cole, who Sneed in 12 Monkeys, are brothers who grew up in the apocalypse together, and so they call themselves brothers even though they're not related.
That's
literally
funny.
like when he's reciting that speech, it's just straight 12 Monkeys repeating that speech.
Weird.
And yeah, I like the Vulcan gangster. I'm fine with it.
Oh, I loved it. I thought
I liked it. Yeah.
it makes sense. Like, and it the dialogue justified the scene perfectly for me. Like I was totally satisfied with that.
When Raffi stabbed Worf, and I was like, they wouldn't. Would they really? Because I really am just enjoying this lately because of Worf. So please don't take Worf.
I don't know if there was a single moment of that where I thought Worf was actually going to die.
No, not for a moment. Go ahead, Matt. I think we're going to say the same thing.
The I've learned the method to slow my heart rate down.
Yeah. I mean, that's classic Star Trek.
It is.
Yeah, it is.
100%
Yeah.
Star Trek.
Well, I thought you were going to go with like while he's holding the guy and he's like, I have lost a lot of blood.
I love that
That
moment.
was good.
I did
So
like,
good.
the whole like I've learned how to slow my heart rate thing is pretty groan inducing, but in
100% Star Trek.
but in 100% Star Trek way.
Yes.
But then the twist or the button on that of like, but I still very desperately need medical attention.
I know. Do need a doctor.
was very well done.
Yeah, so they have so many great scenes. Can we talk about the Titan itself for a minute?
Yeah.
Because I love that ship.
Same.
Well, because you love the original Constitution refit.
Yes, you're 100% right, and I recognize my bias because it is basically just the exact saucer section from the refit.
It's because it's a Neo Constitution.
I know it's such a stupid name. I love it.
But, so I can't remember where I saw it, but either it was a Twitter thread or an article somewhere where they were talking, or some YouTube video where they were talking about how the Federation is getting ready to do the big Federation Day and celebrating the thing. But also it had just gone through a whole bunch of really terrible things, right? Like the past 2 seasons of Picard, a massive conspiracy that went up to the highest ranks of the Federation was uncovered, and the secret behind all of the synths and all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So like the Federation just took a bunch of hits as an organization. And so the idea that a organization like the Federation for their upcoming anniversary would kind of lean retro as a way to sort of like remember who we used to be. I wish I could
Didn't
remember
even
who
occur
made
to
the
me.
point. But yeah, like I don't know if that's what they were going for, but as a retcon, I'm just kind of like that. Yeah, the idea of they're trying to rebuild trust and everything to sort of lean back on that nostalgia and that era of Starfleet that everybody knows and loves, and they want to reimagine. Makes sense.
Yeah, and I love it. I also we know. Go ahead, Brian. Go ahead.
I
Counterpoint.
mean, yeah, that's not how engineering works. That's not how ship design or plane design or any design works. Like, the Air Force doesn't like make the F-22 purposely look like the P-51 Mustang so the public will care more about it. Or, we don't purposefully make the new aircraft carrier look like the USS Constitution because of the nostalgia factor. It's just
Right,
that,
but
it would be cool, Brian.
But also, both of those instances, the advantages in design upgrades over the years come because there is an advantage aerodynamically or in the water. Whereas in space, you can make any shape you want, and the shape of the ship probably has less to do with the interior technology and capabilities of the vessel, right?
no, because it's fantasy physics, but presumably there's some physics involved that says, okay, that a Starfleet engineer, a Starfleet ship designer goes, this is the best shape for this ship to accomplish what our purposes are, right? And so just like in real life, like, a 777 and an F-22 are both airplanes, but they're designed for very different purposes, and therefore they have very different shapes. So a cruiser might have a very different shape than a runabout or whatever, or a Starfleet ship might have a very different shape from a Klingon ship, but presumably they operate according to similar laws of physics that say, like, this is the optimal solution. I'm a starship nerd.
How do you know that the engineer didn't do that and that was just the best design for that thing?
It just doesn't feel right. I mean, honestly, this goes back to the debates I had on the Flare sci-fi forums in the early 2000s with when they released the NX-01 of like, well, it's got these it looks cool, and why wouldn't Starfleet just design something to look cool? It's like that. No, it doesn't feel right to me in terms of the sense of the design. It breaks the world building for me. That's what it comes down to.
Because it takes a step backwards in the evolutionary design of the starships that we have come to know and love. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, there's just something in the sense of the style and the design feels like is inconsistent to me.
Okay, that's valid. Wrong, but valid.
Well,
no, I know.
I mean, I don't see how you wouldn't dislike a bunch of the ships solely on that basis, because like
I do.
So,
I mean,
I love the Titan. I think it looks awesome, and I am fine with.
I think the profile of
yeah.
Go ahead, Travis. I'm sorry.
No, I think it looks awesome. I'm okay with the idea that it looks similar in various ways because it looks like multiple past ships, like sort of pushed together. And yeah, I just think it looks awesome. So
I just love the profile of it. The profile of it, especially, is just it's just a pretty looking ship. So what other topics do we want to hit real quick? Because I got notes.
Well, I mean, if you since we're on the topic, can we go into detail about the registry and how the Enterprise is the only ship that has a suffix, and the fact that now other ships get? Okay.
Also, we have like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
We've been talking for an hour already.
Yeah.
I read an
we started recording.
that, Brian.
Sorry, say it again, Matt.
I did read an explanation for that.
Okay.
That was actually given by the starship designer. If you want to know,
we can do that in the Discord. How about?
Yeah.
So what's another note that you have,
I mean,
Brian?
this is just a purely like nitpick. This is absolutely nitpick of nitpicks, but in my opinion, only the Enterprise gets the letter suffix. But that canon has overridden that at this point. So
it has.
That ship has sailed.
As it were.
Go ahead, Ryan.
I just wanted to comment on the end of I think it was the 4th episode, 3.4. Yeah, it was. When they get out of the nebula. I love that there was a moment of the space babies, like
that was beautiful.
it was akin to Farpoint, but it was like, here is the ship battle going on in this tactical scenario and this gripping life moments for this crew, but had the Shrike not been there, and had they not entered the nebula because they were trying to escape danger, like that in and of itself was a glimpse at what that episode of the Titans of Star Trek Titan would have been. They would have been caught in the nebula. They would have had to figure out that it was a birthing process, and then in the end they would ride the wave out. And the result, the finale of the episode, the denouement, was watching the babies go. Like, so that would have been a complete, perfect, beautiful Star Trek episode on its own, without the danger and violence of the Shrike. But I love how they sort of tied it in, and the crew of the Enterprise got to, they got there for completely different reasons and unusual circumstances from what they're used to, but the end game is the same. There's still this beautiful scientific discovery that they have unearthed.
And the game is a Voyager episode.
What?
Endgame. Ryan said Endgame. Endgame is the name of a Voyager episode.
Oh.
And Brian, I'm gonna cancel you from the Zoom. No, but I just love
that.
How
that wasn't supposed to stop you dead in your tracks the way it did.
Also, if I may, that thing you're talking, that whole scene that you're talking about, Crusher, Beverly figuring out. There it is. Beverly studying the pattern of it, and like, solving the problem of it and the puzzle of it and stuff, and putting together that it was contractions and all of that stuff. Like, that is why Dr. Teal, I'm like, my doctor is a problem solver. Like, I've always loved Beverly Crusher because of moments like that. And I was so glad to see her, like, back on a spaceship solving puzzles. Like, I was so thrilled for that moment.
That's a good
like
point.
It meant a lot to me personally.
If there's nothing wrong with me, maybe there's something wrong with the universe.
Right. Yeah.
I love that episode. That episode.
Yeah.
No, that's a great episode. No, I mean, that line gets thrown around a lot on social media.
Yeah.
Because like out of context, it sounds very silly, but like it was legit. It's legit. Like it's great because it sounds silly out of context, but is so appropriate and works so well in the actual moment of the episode.
Absolutely.
I wonder if it's. I mean, it feels like a similar vein of the sort of logical jump that Picard had to do in All Good Things, right?
Yeah.
Going like that jump of going like, maybe this thing is traveling backwards through time. She had to literally be like, maybe my perception is correct and there's something wrong with the rest of the universe somehow.
Yeah.
Like,
And I also like it. I identify with it because she is a smart woman solving a problem on screen. And it's
when nobody else was. No one
else was working on that puzzle or studying that pattern or trying to figure that out. We have this smart woman doctor who steps up and is like, hey, I figured this out. And like, that's the kind of stuff that should be on screen more, not just that every dude on a ship can eventually, figure out whatever problem it is, fight their way out, whatever it is. But that like with some thought and, intelligence and problem solving skills, this lady doctor can kick some ass.
Yeah, I love that because when they cut to the medical bay they cut to sick bay during the energy waves hitting the ship, and everybody's sort of going through the standard protocol of something just rocked our ship, so everybody is off balance and bouncing off the walls. And it feels like just a cut to the medical bay to see how this is affecting the medical bay. But when you see Dr. Crusher, she's also going through those motions, but she's pounding away at a pad, like calculating crap. And like right there in that moment, you're like, you already get the sense that Dr. Crusher is working on something. She's working on this, and when nobody else is, and that's that. Well,
also, like, let's note she did that on her off time because she was also help treating patients at that moment too. So
after getting shit on.
In
by
between setting legs and stuff, she's like, well, I guess I'll just solve this problem as well.
She's fine because she was, oh god, the way they treated her in the last two missions or movies. I'm sorry, the last two movies. I'm really glad that Beverly's finally getting the spotlight that she deserves.
Beverly.
Beverly.
Now hopefully Troy comes in the back half and also gets the creds.
Yeah.
Well, we know she will.
Yeah, I mean, we know that eventually everybody will end up in the room together, and I hope once that does happen, that everybody will get their moments, especially the ones who haven't had as much of an opportunity for moments
Yeah.
as the
Yeah.
others. And Deanna is at the top of that list easily.
Yeah.
You know what else is cool? You know how we all kind of got started making Star Wars fan films?
Yeah.
You know the voice of the Titan's computer? You know who that voice is?
Who is
I
it?
just saw it. Is it Pink? Is it Pink 5?
It's Amy Earhart who was Pink 5.
No
I
way.
recognize the name. I
Great.
didn't until you led me down the path. I wouldn't have gotten there on my own. But wow, that's awesome.
Wow.
Computer, stop. I said
Oh,
Yeah, that
There we go.
happens in our house a lot.
yeah, it's Amy Earhart from Pink 5 fame.
Wow, that's
That's-
great. Good for
that's
her.
really awesome. Oh god, there's so much more, but we don't have
There
time.
is.
So
We don't.
Yeah. So I want to add one more thing in the sense of like how I talked about how the first half of the season feels like the first act. We didn't talk at all about Jack Crusher, and I think
Yeah.
that's because we got maybe a partial of a first act to his story, right? Like
Yeah.
I like what he's been like. He's been fun and like fine on screen, but it's like, okay, well, there's something going on with him, but there's only been so small amount teased
Right.
that we're just
What
up to the point where it's
is
like,
he? What's
okay, I'm ready
happening?
to find out something,
Yeah.
but like we've gotten so little.
Yeah.
we haven't even talked about the changelings too, and
Well,
their
I think
impact.
we should
Obviously,
maybe. Sorry,
That-
go ahead.
No, go ahead, Dara.
I was gonna say I think maybe we should do a second Picard supplemental for the last half
Oh
of the
yeah,
season.
for the finish,
Mhm.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, once the full season is out, I think because
do
I mean that's the thing is like there's so much stuff that's still up in the air that is still that we know is still to come.
Yeah.
That's
So closing
know.
thoughts, what is everybody's hopes for the rest of the back half? Like what are you just hoping for on a sort of philosophical level?
I just hope they're careful with all my favorite people. Don't mess
now-
up my characters, like
do you mean that in like a storytelling way, or in a like? Do you hope they don't ruin or tarnish the legacy of the Star Trek that you love, or do you hope they don't do harmful things to the characters?
I mean
in
all
canon.
all of those things, but mostly what I meant was like I hope that they write for them and keep them true to who they've built all these years. I hope that they are as close to what we know and hope for as we can get without it being like, oh, and suddenly so and so is like this instead because of no
Suddenly,
real reason. Like,
Geordi is the villain for no reason.
yeah, exactly. I just want them to be thoughtful and careful, and I will enjoy it. I'm along for the ride, certainly.
Matt?
I just hope it's good. And I like it.
That's all.
That's
The
it.
valid hope.
That's so much.
I
to
just
ask
want it to
for.
be entertaining.
Yeah.
So
Travis.
Oh, I want it to be like completely off the rails bonkers. Like I said, I started this.
Some men
show-
just want to watch the world burn.
I went in with like a lack of expectations as opposed to low expectations. I was like,
Oh.
I saw the trailer and went, there's a whole bunch there. That seems
Yeah.
crazy. And you know what? It's the last season. We know it's the last season. Go for it. Like
Yeah.
throw everything. Do kitchen sink storytelling as long as it works enough to enjoy the ride. I'm fine with it not being beautiful like Tale of Two
Oh.
Cities storytelling.
Yeah.
As long as it's just entertaining, I would love to just be able to throw it on and just enjoy the bonkers nature of randomly having all of this crazy stuff happening for no reason. Sure, I'm on board.
Ryan.
I shouldn't be, but I absolutely am. Like, to me, it's really important that people like what they're seeing. And when I say that, I mean that it gets a good score on Rotten Tomatoes, or it gets a high rating on imdb.com. Like that, for whatever reason, that holds more weight than it should for me. And just looking down season 3 right now, going through episodes 1 through 5, here are the ratings on IMDb: 8.4, 8.1, 8.5, 9.1, 9.1. Like, people are loving this shit. and I just hope that trend continues, and because it will inform my own how I feel about the show in the long run, because
You're a
I happen
follower.
to maybe I am. Maybe I don't know. I just want I don't want people to hate the show that I love. And I love, for example, Generations, and it bothers me to no end that nobody else likes that movie.
That's my favorite of the movie.
I like
And
it.
so I hope that the growing consensus is the continuing consensus is that it's doing its job and people are enjoying it.
Brian.
I hope that they stick the landing. I'm liking what they do so far. I feel like the maybe the pitfalls of the last couple of seasons has been that they've had a lot of great stuff, and we've talked about this, a lot of cool ideas, and it just didn't come together in a way that felt cohesive at the end. And not to say, like, to go to Travis's point, not to say that it has to be Tale of Two Cities or anything, but just that all of the pieces come together in a way that is satisfying. That's what I'm worried about, but also hopeful about, in a way that I wasn't hopeful at this point in seasons 1 and 2, right?
Yeah.
Based on what's actually come. So guardedly optimistic or hopeful that it will all come together in some kind of satisfying way.
Nice.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we should we should point out that we will be answering in next week's Tempest Talks. Or, I'm sorry, in 2 weeks from now, when in our next release date. We will be answering the questions from our Patreons and our fans who threw some questions at us for the cast and crew of Starship Tempest. So that will be not this time, but next time on Starship Tempest Talks. So thank you guys for submitting the questions. We will get to them next time. In fact, we're just going to hit stop right now and just go right into it and record it today. But we didn't want this Tempest Talks to be too long, so we broke it up into two episodes. So. Brian, you want to sign us out?
No, not really. Bye, everybody.
Okay. Well, as always,
somebody else do it. I always do it.
All right. So I'll just keep going. All right. So
Yeah.
Thank you guys for listening. We appreciate you so much for your own appreciation of our show and what we're doing every single time we throw this out there.
We are glad that you have such great taste.
So as always, stay safe, be kind, and we'll see you out there.